The crystalline chamber hummed with tension as representatives from across the galaxy gathered for what many believed would be the final council meeting regarding the human problem. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthon Empire adjusted his ceremonial robes, the fabric shimmering with bioluminescent patterns that betrayed his anxiety. Around the massive circular table, dozens of alien species sat in their designated positions, each more convinced than the last that they were about to witness the end of humanity's brief and violent expansion into their space. High Counselor Naraxis, a towering figure with 4 arms and skin like polished obsidian, called the assembly to order. Her voice resonated through the chamber's translation matrix, ensuring every species could understand the gravity of the moment. The humans had been expanding for barely 50 standard years since achieving faster-than-light travel, yet they had already claimed 17 star systems and showed no signs of slowing their aggressive colonization efforts. Esteemed colleagues, Naraxis began, her primary arms gesturing while her secondary ones manipulated holographic displays. We have gathered to finalize our response to the human incursion. Our combined fleets number over 12,000 vessels, representing the military might of 47 civilizations. The humans possess fewer than 800 ships, most of which are converted civilian craft with hastily installed weapons. A ripple of agreement passed through the assembly. The math was simple, almost insultingly so. The Galactic Council had fought wars before, but never against such an obviously outmatched opponent. Some members questioned whether military action was even necessary, suggesting that a simple blockade might force the humans to negotiate. Commander Vexthul of the Cretan Star Navy stood to address the council. His species was known throughout the galaxy for their tactical brilliance, and had never lost a fleet engagement in over 3 centuries of warfare. Honored counselors, while I appreciate the desire for a swift resolution, we must not underestimate our opponents simply because they are technologically inferior. The humans have displayed concerning adaptability in their brief existence as a spacefaring species. Several council members chittered and clicked in what the translation matrix rendered as dismissive laughter. Admiral Quarren of the Helix Federation, whose people had mastered interstellar travel when Earth was still covered in ice, spoke with barely concealed contempt. Commander Vexthul, with respect to your military expertise, these humans barely understand quantum mechanics. Their ships are powered by fusion reactors that our ancestors abandoned millennia ago. They haven't even developed proper energy shields. The holographic display shifted to show recent intelligence gathered on human military capabilities. Their vessels were indeed primitive by galactic standards, relying on kinetic weapons and nuclear warheads, while the Council's ships boasted plasma cannons, antimatter torpedoes, and defensive systems that could withstand the heat of a star. The humans' largest dreadnought was smaller than the Council's standard frigate, and their tactical formations showed a concerning lack of sophistication. Ambassador Zethkar finally spoke, his voice carrying the weight of his empire's vast military experience. Perhaps the question is not whether we can defeat them, but whether we should. The humans have shown remarkable resilience in establishing their colonies. Their settlements on hostile worlds that we deemed uninhabitable suggest a species with unusual determination. Should we not consider diplomatic solutions before resorting to force? The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien sounds as various species expressed their opinions simultaneously. The translation matrix struggled to keep up with the overlapping conversations, creating a strange symphony of multilingual discourse. Some agreed with the ambassador's cautious approach, while others argued that humanity's aggressive expansion threatened the carefully maintained balance of galactic civilization. High Counselor Naraxis raised all 4 arms for silence. The time for diplomatic solutions has passed. The humans have ignored 17 separate cease and desist orders. They have established military installations in neutral space and refused to acknowledge our territorial claims. 3 weeks ago, they fired upon a Helix Federation scout ship that was conducting routine patrols in the Kepler 442 system. The display showed footage from the incident. A sleek Federation vessel approached what appeared to be a human mining operation on an asteroid. Without warning, crude missiles erupted from concealed launchers, damaging the scout ship's engines and forcing it to retreat. The humans claimed they were defending their legitimate mining claims, but the asteroid was clearly within Federation space according to treaties signed long before humans had achieved spaceflight. This unprovoked aggression cannot stand. Admiral Corrin declared, his tentacles writhing with emotion. If we allow these newcomers to ignore established law, what message does that send to other emerging species? We have maintained peace for over 2,000 years through strength and unity. The humans threaten that stability. Data streams flowed across the holographic displays, showing the Council's overwhelming advantages in every category that mattered. Their ships were faster, their weapons more powerful, their shields impenetrable to human technology. Computer simulations run by the galaxy's most advanced artificial intelligences predicted complete human defeat within 72 hours of the first engagement. Some projections suggested the war could end in as little as 18 hours if the humans attempted to fight conventionally. Commander Vexthul requested permission to speak again. Counselors, I have studied human military history during their pre-spaceflight era. This species has a disturbing tendency to resort to tactics that others consider unthinkable. They have weaponized diseases, poisoned entire ecosystems, and deliberately targeted civilian populations. While their technology is primitive, their willingness to embrace extreme measures is unprecedented in our records. Ancient history, Admiral Corrin dismissed. Once species achieve spaceflight, they inevitably evolve beyond such barbaric methods. Galactic civilization has a civilizing effect on all who join it. Even the most aggressive species eventually learn to follow established protocols of warfare. The vote was called, and the result was never in doubt. 43 civilizations voted for immediate military action, with only 4 abstentions and no opposition. The combined fleet would assemble at the edge of human space within 1 standard week. Terms of surrender would be transmitted to Earth, giving humanity 72 hours to withdraw from all disputed territories and submit to galactic authority. As the council session ended, Ambassador Zethkar lingered in the crystalline chamber, studying the tactical projections that painted such a clear picture of human defeat. Something deep in his evolutionary memory whispered warnings about predators who appeared weak before striking, but he pushed such primitive thoughts aside. The numbers didn't lie, and numbers were all that mattered in modern warfare. The galaxy's greatest military minds had spoken, and they were unanimous in their certainty. The war with humanity would be the shortest in recorded galactic history. Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the observation deck of the UES Defiance, watching the last of Earth's merchant vessels disappear into hyperspace. The evacuation order had gone out 6 hours ago, and the civilian fleet was scattering to predetermined safe zones throughout human space. Behind her, the bridge crew worked with the quiet efficiency that came from months of preparation for this exact moment. Admiral, we're receiving the final transmission from the Galactic Council, reported Communications Officer Martinez, his voice steady, despite the magnitude of what they were about to face. They're demanding complete withdrawal from all territories beyond the Sol system within 72 hours, followed by submission to their authority and payment of reparations for damages to their scout ship. Chen turned from the viewport, her expression calm despite knowing that 12,000 alien warships were massing at the edge of human space. The intelligence reports painted a grim picture of humanity's chances in conventional warfare. The enemy ships were faster, better armed, and protected by energy shields that human weapons couldn't penetrate. Every tactical analysis concluded that Earth's fleet of converted civilian craft and hastily built warships would be obliterated within hours. Any response to our attempts at diplomatic contact? She asked, though she already knew the answer. Negative, Admiral. They've ignored every communication attempt since the incident at Kepler 442. It appears they consider us too primitive to warrant negotiation. The irony wasn't lost on Chen. The aliens' dismissive attitude had provided humanity with its greatest advantage. While the Galactic Council saw only inferior technology and desperate converts, they missed the deeper truth about human nature. They failed to understand that necessity had always been humanity's greatest teacher. Dr. Marcus Webb, the fleet's chief scientist, emerged from the tactical planning room looking exhausted but determined. His team had been working around the clock for weeks, finalizing preparations for what military historians would undoubtedly call the most desperate gambit in human military history. Status report, Doctor? Chen asked. All systems are green, Admiral. The quantum resonance generators are functioning within acceptable parameters across the entire fleet. We've successfully synchronized the temporal displacement field generators, and our computer models predict a 93% probability of success, assuming the aliens' technology operates on the theoretical principles we've identified. Chen nodded, though she knew the real number was probably closer to 60%. Webb was an optimist, and his team had been forced to make numerous assumptions about alien technology based on limited sensor data. They were betting humanity's survival on theories that hadn't been fully tested, using technology that pushed the boundaries of human understanding. The plan had emerged from humanity's greatest weakness becoming its greatest strength. While other species had developed faster-than-light travel through gradual technological advancement over millennia, humans had achieved it through a desperate leap of theoretical physics. They had skipped intermediate steps, ignored conventional wisdom, and created innovations that more advanced species considered impossible. "The fleet is in position," reported Captain Torres from the tactical station. "All ships are maintaining radio silence and following their designated patrol routes. To external sensors, we appear to be conducting routine defensive maneuvers." Through the observation deck's transparent aluminum windows, Chen could see the human fleet spread across local space. 763 vessels ranging from converted colony ships equipped with mining lasers to purpose-built destroyers, bristling with nuclear missiles. Every human military vessel in existence was here, along with civilian craft that had been hastily militarized. The alien fleet would arrive within 18 hours, and when it did, they would expect to find a desperate but conventional defense. They would see human ships arranged in predictable formations, following standard tactical protocols that any Galactic Military Academy graduate could counter. The aliens would assume that humanity would fight as every other species fought, attempting to match firepower with firepower and accepting defeat when overwhelmed by superior numbers. They would be catastrophically wrong. "Admiral, we're receiving reports from our deep space observation posts," Martinez announced. "The alien fleet has completed its assembly. Estimated composition: 4 dreadnoughts, 26 heavy cruisers, 147 frigates, and thousands of smaller vessels. They'll be entering our space within the hour." Chen moved to the central command station, where holographic displays showed the approaching threat. The alien formation was a thing of beauty, with ships arranged in perfect geometric patterns that spoke of millennia of tactical refinement. Each vessel's position had been calculated for maximum firepower concentration while maintaining optimal defensive coverage. It was the kind of formation that had won countless battles across galactic history. "All ships, this is Admiral Chen," she announced over the fleet's encrypted communication network. "Remember, we get one chance at this. The moment they realize what we're doing, they'll adapt. Speed and coordination are everything. Follow your assigned protocols exactly, and trust in your training." Dr. Webb approached the command station, his tablet displaying the final technical specifications. "Admiral, I should mention that there's still some theoretical debate about the long-term effects of quantum resonance disruption on this scale. We're essentially weaponizing principles that physics textbooks say are impossible." "Doctor, physics? Textbooks also said that faster-than-light travel was impossible until we proved them wrong. Sometimes the impossible is just the improbable waiting for the right moment." The truth was that humanity's approach to science differed fundamentally from the galactic norm. While other species refined existing technologies over countless generations, humans threw themselves at theoretical barriers with reckless creativity. They combined disciplines that aliens kept carefully separated, ignored established safety protocols, and pursued solutions that more cautious species would never attempt. The quantum resonance technology now installed throughout the human fleet was a perfect example. It had emerged from a desperate attempt to solve the faster-than-light problem, using theories that conventional wisdom deemed unworkable. Human scientists had ignored the warnings, bypassed the safety systems, and created something that violated several supposedly fundamental laws of physics. "Incoming transmission from the lead alien vessel," Martinez reported. "They're demanding our immediate surrender and requesting permission to deploy occupation forces to our primary colonies." "Standard response," Chen ordered. "Tell them we're prepared to discuss terms but request 24 hours to coordinate with our civilian government. Make it sound like we're buying time while preparing for evacuation." The alien commander's reply came swiftly. translated by the communication system into clipped, efficient English. The speaker's tone conveyed the casual confidence of someone who had never lost a battle and saw no reason this engagement would be different. Human vessels, you have 6 hours to comply with our previous demands. Any delay will be interpreted as hostile intent, and we will respond accordingly. Your resistance is futile. Your technology is primitive. Your defeat is inevitable. Choose, surrender, and your species will be permitted to exist under galactic authority. Chen smiled grimly as she cut the transmission. The aliens' arrogance was about to become their downfall. They saw only the surface of human capabilities, missing the deeper currents of innovation and desperation that drove humanity forward. In 18 hours, the galaxy would learn what happened when an unstoppable force met an impossible solution. High Fleet Commander Zarquith stood on the bridge of the dreadnought Eternal Victory, watching tactical displays that showed the pathetic human defensive formation with something approaching disappointment. After months of preparation and the assembly of the largest military force in galactic history, the humans had arranged themselves in textbook defensive patterns that any first-year tactical student could dismantle. "Fleet status report," he commanded, his 4 primary eyes scanning the holographic displays while his secondary pair monitored his officers' reactions. "All ships report ready for engagement." "Commander," replied his tactical officer, a young Helix Federation navigator whose excitement was poorly concealed. "The human fleet has positioned itself in a standard planetary defense formation around their 3rd planet. Estimated engagement time, 14 minutes at current velocity." The human formation was almost insultingly predictable. Their larger vessels formed a defensive perimeter around their homeworld, while smaller ships patrolled in regular patterns. Every movement followed standard defensive protocols that the galactic military had perfected over thousands of years. There were no surprises, no innovations, no indication that these primitive beings understood the hopelessness of their situation. "Tactical assessment?" Zarquith asked, though he already knew what the analysis would reveal. "Sir, their largest vessels appear to be converted colony ships with external weapon mounts. Primary armament consists of kinetic projectile weapons and fusion-based warheads. No energy shields detected. No evidence of plasma or antimatter weaponry. Their formation suggests they intend to fight a defensive action, probably hoping to inflict enough casualties to negotiate terms." Zarquith nodded thoughtfully. The humans were following the same pattern as every other primitive species that had challenged galactic authority. They would make a brave but futile stand, lose approximately 20% of their fleet in the first exchange, and then attempt to surrender with whatever dignity they could preserve. It was almost formulaic. "Commander, we're receiving a transmission from the human flagship," reported the communications officer. "Display it." A holographic image materialized above the bridge's central console, showing a middle-aged human female in what appeared to be a military uniform. Her expression was calm, almost serene, which Zarquith found slightly puzzling. Most species showed obvious signs of stress when facing overwhelming odds. "This is Admiral Sarah Chen of the United Earth Space Command. I am authorized to discuss the terms of our surrender, provided we can guarantee the safety of our civilian populations." Murmurs of satisfaction rippled through Zarquith's bridge crew. The humans were already preparing to surrender, probably hoping to avoid the complete destruction of their fleet. It was a sensible decision, if somewhat disappointing from a tactical perspective. "Human Admiral, this is Fleet Commander Zarquith. Your surrender terms are simple. Immediate withdrawal from all contested territories, submission to galactic authority, payment of reparations, and permanent restriction to your birth system. You have 30 minutes to comply." The human admiral's expression didn't change, but something in her eyes suggested she was considering his words carefully. After a moment, she nodded slowly. "We need time to coordinate with our civilian government and military commands throughout our territories. Can you provide us with 6 hours to organize an orderly withdrawal?" Zarquith considered the request. It was reasonable, and allowing the humans to withdraw with some semblance of dignity would make the post-war occupation much smoother. The Galactic Council preferred conquered species to maintain some level of autonomy, as complete subjugation often led to persistent rebellion. 4 hours, he decided. Use the time wisely, Admiral. Any attempt to escape or reinforce your position will be met with immediate and overwhelming force. The transmission ended, leaving Zarkith to contemplate the anticlimactic end to what had promised to be the largest military operation in recent galactic history. Around him, his officers began making preparations for the occupation phase, assuming the humans would honor their agreement to surrender. "Sir, should we maintain our approach vector?" asked the navigation officer. "Reduce speed to half advance. We'll maintain pressure while allowing them time to organize their surrender, but keep all weapon systems at full readiness." Sometimes desperate species attempt last-minute gambits. The alien fleet adjusted its formation, slowing its advance while maintaining an intimidating presence. Across the vast expanse of space, 12,000 vessels continued their approach toward Earth, their weapons powered and their shields raised. Every commander in the fleet knew this was merely a formality, a brief delay before the humans accepted the inevitable. On the tactical displays, the human fleet continued its routine patrol patterns around their homeworld. Long-range sensors detected no unusual activity, no attempts to flee or call for reinforcements. The humans appeared to be exactly what they seemed, a primitive species that had overextended itself and was now accepting the consequences of challenging galactic authority. Zarkith retired to his private quarters to review the post-engagement reports that would need to be filed. The paperwork for accepting an enemy's surrender was actually more complex than the documentation for defeating them in battle. The galactic bureaucracy demanded detailed assessments of the conquered species' future potential, resource allocation, and integration requirements. 3 hours passed in routine preparation. The alien fleet maintained its steady approach while the humans continued their defensive posture. Communications between ships were minimal, and long-range sensors detected no unusual energy signatures or unexpected movements. Everything proceeded exactly according to established protocols for accepting an inferior enemy's surrender. "Commander, we're receiving another transmission from the human Admiral," his communications officer announced as Zarkith returned to the bridge. "She's probably requesting additional time or attempting to negotiate better terms," he replied. Taking his position at the central command station, "Display the transmission." Admiral Chen's image appeared again, her expression unchanged from their previous conversation. Behind her, Zarkith could see human officers working at their primitive control stations, apparently making preparations for their surrender. "Fleet Commander Zarkith, our government has completed its deliberations. We have a response to your demands." "Proceed, Admiral." Chen's expression shifted almost imperceptibly, and for the first time, Zarkith detected something that might have been amusement in her eyes. When she spoke, her voice carried a tone that he couldn't quite identify. "Our response is this. No." The transmission ended abruptly, leaving Zarkith staring at the empty space where the human admiral's image had been. Around him, his bridge crew exchanged confused glances, uncertain how to interpret what they had just heard. "Sir?" his tactical officer asked hesitantly. Before Zarkith could respond, every alarm on the bridge began sounding simultaneously. Warning lights flashed across the tactical displays as sensors detected massive energy fluctuations throughout the human fleet. Whatever the humans were doing, it was like nothing in the galactic database of known technologies. "Report," Zarkith barked, his earlier confidence evaporating as he watched impossible readings cascade across his displays. "Sir, the human ships are generating quantum resonance fields of unprecedented magnitude. Energy levels are exceeding our instrument's measurement capabilities. I'm reading temporal displacement signatures that shouldn't be possible with their technology level." On the main display, the human fleet was beginning to glow with an eerie blue-white light that seemed to bend space around each vessel. The neat defensive formation was dissolving as ships began moving in ways that defied conventional physics, their movements creating ripples in space-time that registered on sensors as impossible gravitational anomalies. Zarkith realized with growing horror that the humans had never intended to surrender. The 4 hours of delay hadn't been used to prepare for capitulation. They had used the time to prepare for something far more dangerous. Dr. Marcus Webb felt the familiar tingle of quantum field activation as the UES Defiance's experimental systems came online. Around him, the science deck hummed with energy levels that would have terrified any rational physicist, but rationality had been abandoned the moment humanity decided to weaponize theoretical impossibilities. All quantum resonance generators are synchronized across the fleet, reported Chief Engineer Rodriguez, her voice steady despite the fact that they were about to attempt something that violated several fundamental laws of physics. Temporal displacement fields are stable and building to critical threshold. Admiral Chen's voice echoed through the ship's communication system as she addressed the entire human fleet. All vessels, this is Admiral Chen. Initiate Protocol 7 on my mark. Remember, we have one chance to prove that impossible and improbable are not the same thing. Execute in 3, 2, 1 mark. Webb watched his instruments as every ship in the human fleet simultaneously activated technology that shouldn't exist. The quantum resonance generators, built from theories that mainstream galactic science had, dismissed as fantasy, began creating localized disruptions in the fabric of space-time itself. What the aliens saw as primitive human vessels suddenly became something far more dangerous. The science behind their plan was deceptively simple, though the engineering required to implement it had pushed human technology beyond its theoretical limits. Every faster-than-light capable civilization in the galaxy used some variation of spatial distortion to achieve superluminal travel. Their ships existed partially outside normal space-time while moving between stars, relying on complex field generators to maintain the necessary distortions. Humanity had discovered that these same fields could be weaponized through quantum resonance disruption. By generating precisely calibrated interference patterns, they could destabilize the spatial distortions that alien technology required to function. It was like using a tuning fork to shatter crystal, except the crystal was the fundamental physics that kept alien ships operational. Resonance cascade initiated, Webb announced, watching as energy readings climbed toward levels that his instruments couldn't properly measure. Field coherence is holding steady across all vessels. We're achieving approximately 94% synchronization with projected alien field frequencies. The alien fleet, still approaching at reduced speed, suddenly found itself facing an impossible situation. Their energy shields, which operated by bending space around their vessels, began fluctuating as the quantum resonance fields interfered with their spatial distortion generators. Warning alarms sounded across 12,000 alien ships as their most fundamental technologies started failing simultaneously. "Sir, their shields are destabilizing," reported Tactical Officer Martinez, his voice filled with amazement as he watched the impossible happen on his displays. "Energy patterns are collapsing across their entire fleet. They're trying to compensate, but our interference is adapting faster than their stabilization systems can respond." Webb had spent months refining the mathematical models that made this possible. The key insight had come from studying humanity's own chaotic approach to faster-than-light travel. While other species had developed elegant, stable solutions over millennia of gradual advancement, humans had achieved FTL through brute force and creative interpretation of physical laws. That same chaotic approach now provided their salvation. The alien technologies were sophisticated but rigid, designed for efficiency and reliability over countless generations of refinement. They couldn't adapt quickly enough to counter humanity's deliberately unstable interference patterns. Phase 2 initiated, Webb announced as the human fleet began its next impossible maneuver. Temporal displacement fields are anchoring local space-time. The aliens are being locked into normal space. This was the truly devastating aspect of humanity's weapon. Not only were they disrupting alien technology, they were preventing the aliens from using their superior speed and maneuverability to escape. The temporal displacement fields created pockets of locked space-time where faster-than-light travel became impossible. Across the alien fleet, panic began spreading as commanders realized they were trapped. Their ships, designed for swift movement and rapid tactical repositioning, found themselves locked into conventional physics. Vessels that could normally traverse star systems in hours were suddenly restricted to the same limitations that bound human ships. "Dr. Webb, we're detecting massive power fluctuations in the alien fleet," reported sensor operator Kim from her station. "It looks like they're attempting to overload their field generators to break free from our interference." "Expected response," Webb replied, checking his calculations one final time. "Their power systems are designed for steady-state operation. Overloading will only accelerate the cascade failure we've initiated. They're essentially helping us destroy their own ships." Admiral Chen appeared on the science deck, her expression grimly satisfied as she watched the tactical situation unfold. "Status report, Doctor?" "Better than projected, Admiral. We've successfully trapped approximately 11,000 vessels in locked spacetime. Their shields are failing across the board, and their weapon systems are operating at reduced efficiency. The remaining 1,000 ships are attempting to retreat, but our interference patterns are expanding faster than they can escape." The human fleet, meanwhile, operated with perfect coordination, despite using technology that pushed the boundaries of possibility. Their quantum resonance generators had been designed specifically for this moment, built with the kind of reckless innovation that characterized human engineering. Where alien technology pursued perfection, human technology embraced controlled chaos. "Initiating Phase 3, Webb announced as the final stage of their plan began. "Quantum resonance inversion in progress. We're about to turn their own technology against them." This was the most dangerous part of the operation, requiring split-second timing and precise coordination across hundreds of ships. The quantum resonance fields that had been disrupting alien technology suddenly inverted their frequencies, creating a feedback loop that would overload every alien system simultaneously. "All human vessels, prepare for resonance inversion," Admiral Chen announced over the fleet communication network. "This is where we find out if our theories work in practice. All ships report ready status." One by one, ship captains across the human fleet confirmed their readiness. These were crews that had trained for months to operate technology that shouldn't exist, preparing for a battle that conventional wisdom said they couldn't win. They were about to prove that human determination combined with impossible science could overcome any odds. "Resonance inversion in 3, 2, 1, execute," Webb announced, activating the final phase of humanity's desperate gambit. Across space, the quantum resonance fields suddenly reversed their polarity, creating a cascade of energy feedback that raced through the alien fleet at the speed of light. Every alien vessel found its own technology turning against it, their sophisticated systems overloading and failing as resonance patterns designed for destruction spread from ship to ship. Webb watched his instruments as impossible readings confirmed that their desperate theory was working. The alien fleet, which had seemed invincible just minutes before, was tearing itself apart as their own advanced technology became their downfall. "Admiral," he reported with quiet satisfaction, "I believe we've just redefined what's possible in galactic warfare." Fleet Commander Zarquith watched in horror as his flagship's primary systems began cascading into failure around him. The bridge of the eternal victory, which had never known defeat in 3 centuries of warfare, was now filled with the sound of overloading circuits and the acrid smell of burning electronics. "Shield generators offline," his tactical officer reported, his voice cracking with disbelief. "Primary power coupling has overloaded. Secondary systems are failing across all decks. Sir, we're reading similar failures throughout the entire fleet." On the main display, the impossible was happening with devastating efficiency. The human fleet, which should have been obliterated in the first exchange of fire, was somehow turning the galaxy's most advanced technology against itself. Ships that had served for millennia were tearing themselves apart as their own systems became weapons of self-destruction. "How is this possible?" Zarquith demanded, his 4 eyes trying to process tactical readings that made no sense according to everything he understood about physics and warfare. "Their technology is primitive. They shouldn't be capable of interfering with our systems at this level." His science officer, a brilliant crystalline entity whose species had mastered quantum mechanics before most galaxies had formed, was frantically running diagnostics on their failing systems. "Commander, they're using some form of quantum resonance disruption that I've never encountered before. It appears they're destabilizing the fundamental field structures that our technology relies upon." The explanation was as terrifying as it was incomprehensible. Galactic civilization had built its technological foundation on principles that had remained stable for millions of years. The idea that a primitive species could simply make those principles stop working was beyond the scope of established science. "Emergency power to weapon systems," Zarquith ordered, hoping to at least damage some human vessels before his flagship became completely disabled. "All ships concentrate fire on the nearest human targets." But even that desperate command proved futile. The Eternal Victory's plasma cannons, which could vaporize asteroids and punch through planetary shields, produced only flickering energy discharges that dissipated harmlessly into space. The quantum resonance fields surrounding the human fleet were disrupting directed energy weapons as easily as they had destroyed the aliens' defensive systems. "Sir, I'm reading massive structural failures throughout the fleet," reported the damage control officer. "The quantum disruption is affecting our hull integrity fields. Ships are beginning to break apart under their own gravitational stress." Zarquith watched his tactical display as red warning indicators spread like an infection throughout the representation of his fleet. Dreadnoughts that had conquered star systems were now drifting hulks, their crews trapped aboard vessels that were slowly tearing themselves apart. Thousands of years of military tradition and technological superiority were being erased in a matter of minutes. The humans had done something that every tactical manual said was impossible. They had turned their technological inferiority into an advantage, using the galaxy's own sophistication against itself. Their primitive, chaotic approach to science had produced weapons that more advanced civilizations couldn't defend against because they couldn't even understand how they worked. "Communications. Get me Admiral Chen," Zarquith commanded, his voice heavy with the weight of impending defeat. "If we're going to surrender, it had better be before this resonance effect kills every being in my fleet." The holographic display flickered as damaged systems attempted to establish contact with the human flagship. When Admiral Chen's image finally appeared, her expression was calm but unmistakably victorious. Behind her, Zarquith could see human crew members working efficiently at their stations, their primitive technology apparently unaffected by the quantum disruption that was destroying his fleet. "Fleet Commander Zarquith," Chen said, her tone respectful but firm. "I trust you're beginning to understand that humanity's approach to warfare differs significantly from galactic norms." "Admiral Chen," Zarquith replied, struggling to maintain some dignity despite his desperate situation, "I formally request terms for the surrender of the galactic fleet. Our ships are disabled and we cannot continue this engagement." Chen nodded thoughtfully as if considering his request. Around her, Zarquith could see displays showing the complete destruction of his fleet's operational capability. Not a single alien vessel remained combat effective, while every human ship continued operating normally despite being surrounded by the same quantum fields that were tearing alien technology apart. "Fleet Commander, humanity appreciates your willingness to discuss terms. However, I should point out that we're not interested in accepting your surrender. We're interested in establishing new ground rules for galactic civilization." The statement sent a chill through Zarqueth's remaining functional nervous systems. Chen wasn't talking about ending a battle. She was talking about reshaping the fundamental power structure of the galaxy. The humans had just demonstrated that they possessed weapons capable of disabling any technology-based civilization, which meant they now held the ultimate strategic advantage. "What are your demands?" Zarquith asked, though he suspected he already knew the answer. "First, immediate withdrawal of all galactic forces from human space. Second, recognition of humanity's sovereignty over all territories we currently occupy. Third, establishment of diplomatic relations on an equal basis with the Galactic Council. And fourth, unrestricted access to galactic trade networks and technological exchanges." Each demand was reasonable by diplomatic standards but represented a complete reversal of the power dynamic that had existed moments before. The humans were essentially demanding to be treated as equals by civilizations that possessed technology thousands of years more advanced than their own. "Admiral, surely you realize that the Galactic Council will never accept these terms," Zarquith protested. "You're asking us to abandon millions of years of established order based on the results of a single battle." Chen's expression hardened slightly, and Zarquith could see the steel beneath her diplomatic manner. "Fleet Commander, I would suggest that the Council consider the alternative. We've just demonstrated that we can disable your technology at will. Every ship, every space station, every technological installation in the galaxy operates on principles that we can now disrupt. Do you really want to test whether we're willing to use this capability on a larger scale?" The threat was delivered calmly, but its implications were staggering. If the humans could project their quantum disruption technology across interstellar distances, they could effectively shut down galactic civilization itself. Every world in the galaxy depended on advanced technology for basic survival. The humans had just revealed that they possessed the ultimate weapon of mass destruction. "I will convey your terms to the Galactic Council," Zarquith said finally, his voice heavy with defeat. but I cannot guarantee their acceptance. Fleet Commander, let me make this simple for you, Chen replied, her tone becoming more direct. The old galaxy, where humanity was considered a primitive species to be managed by our betters, ended about 5 minutes ago. The new galaxy, where humanity is a major power that others ignore at their own peril, begins now. The Council can choose to adapt to this new reality, or they can discover what happens when we stop being diplomatic about it. The transmission ended, leaving Zarquith alone with the wreckage of everything he had believed about galactic military superiority. Around him, his crew worked desperately to prevent their ship from breaking apart completely, while similar scenes played out across what had once been the most powerful fleet in galactic history. In less than 10 minutes, humanity had rewritten the fundamental rules of galactic civilization. They had proven that technological advancement meant nothing when faced with innovative desperation, and that the impossible was simply another word for unexplored. The emergency session of the Galactic Council convened in chaos, with representatives from across the galaxy struggling to comprehend reports that seemed to defy reality itself. High Counselor Naraxis stood before the assembly, her forearms trembling slightly as she read the preliminary damage assessments from the fleet engagement with humanity. "Esteemed colleagues," she began, her voice carrying none of its usual authority, "I must inform you that our combined fleet has suffered complete tactical defeat. Of the 12,000 vessels that engaged the humans, fewer than 800 remain operational. Casualty reports indicate over 3 million military personnel killed, wounded, or missing." The chamber erupted in a cacophony of alien voices as representatives demanded explanations for what appeared to be impossible. The mathematical certainty of galactic victory had been replaced by the brutal reality of comprehensive defeat, and none of the galaxy's greatest minds could understand how it had happened. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthon Empire stood slowly, his ceremonial robes dimmed by grief and confusion. "High Counselor, please explain how a fleet equipped with the most advanced weaponry in galactic history was defeated by converted civilian vessels armed with primitive kinetic weapons." Naraxis gestured toward the holographic displays, which showed tactical recordings from the few surviving ships. The footage revealed something that challenged the fundamental assumptions of galactic science and warfare. According to our preliminary analysis, the humans employed a form of quantum resonance disruption that destabilized the basic field structures underlying our technology. Our shields failed because their spatial distortion generators could not maintain coherence. Our weapons malfunctioned because their plasma containment fields collapsed. Our ship's structural integrity systems ceased functioning because the force field generators that held our hulls together became inoperative. Commander Vexthul, who had survived the engagement aboard one of the few vessels to escape destruction, requested permission to address the Council. His usual confidence had been replaced by the hollow-eyed stare of someone who had witnessed the impossible. "Honored counselors, I must emphasize that this was not a military defeat in any traditional sense. The humans did not outfight us or outmaneuver us. They made our technology stop working. Every system we rely upon, from life support to weapons to propulsion, became unreliable or failed completely within minutes of their attack beginning." Admiral Quarren of the Helix Federation, whose arrogance had been completely stripped away by the disaster, added his own testimony. "The quantum disruption technology they employed appears to specifically target the advanced field manipulation that underlies all modern galactic technology. Our computers estimate that similar weapons could be effective against any civilization that has achieved our level of technological development." The implications were staggering. Humanity had not simply defeated a fleet. They had demonstrated the ability to render galactic civilization helpless. Every space station, every planetary defense system, every piece of advanced technology in the galaxy operated on the same fundamental principles that the humans had just proven they could. Disrupt at will. "Have we received any communication from the humans since the engagement?" Naraxis asked, though she dreaded the answer. "Yes, High Counselor," replied the communications coordinator, a nervous Theta-class artificial intelligence whose processors were struggling to analyze the unprecedented situation. "Admiral Chen transmitted a formal diplomatic message approximately 6 hours ago. She requests an immediate ceasefire and the establishment of negotiations for what she terms a new galactic compact." The message appeared on the central display, written in perfectly diplomatic language that somehow made its revolutionary contents even more disturbing. Humanity was not simply demanding recognition as an equal power. They were proposing a fundamental restructuring of galactic civilization based on the principles of mutual respect and voluntary cooperation rather than technological superiority. They want to rewrite the Treaty of Galactic Order, observed Counselor Tethran of the Silicon Confederacy, her crystalline form flickering with patterns that indicated deep analysis. Every provision that establishes technological advancement as the basis for political authority would be replaced with language emphasizing sovereign equality among all spacefaring species. Ambassador Zethkar reviewed the proposed treaty language with growing alarm. This would effectively eliminate the Council's authority to manage primitive species or prevent them from expanding beyond their home systems. Humanity is proposing that technological development should not determine political status in galactic affairs. The revolutionary nature of the human proposal became clear as the Council analyzed its implications. For millions of years, galactic civilization had operated on the assumption that more advanced species had the right and responsibility to guide the development of younger civilizations. Humanity was suggesting that this entire framework should be abandoned in favor of recognizing every species as inherently equal, regardless of their technological capabilities. What guarantees do we have that humanity will not use this quantum disruption technology against civilian targets? Demanded Admiral Quarren, his tentacles writhing with barely controlled fear. They have demonstrated the ability to shut down our most basic life support systems. They could commit genocide on a galactic scale without firing a single conventional weapon. The question hung in the chamber's recycled atmosphere like a toxic cloud. Everyone present understood that humanity now possessed what amounted to a galactic doomsday weapon. If they chose to deploy their quantum disruption technology on a larger scale, they could effectively end technological civilization throughout the galaxy. According to their diplomatic message, the communications coordinator reported, humanity has no interest in using their weapons against civilian targets or non-military installations. Admiral Chen specifically states that their quantum disruption technology will only be employed in response to military aggression against human territories or interests, and we're supposed to simply trust the word of a species that just destroyed the most powerful fleet in galactic history? Admiral Quarren asked incredulously. High Counselor Naraxis raised all four arms for silence as she contemplated the impossible situation facing the galaxy. The Council had two choices: accept humanity's terms and fundamentally alter the structure of galactic civilization, or refuse their demands and risk the possibility that they would demonstrate the true scope of their destructive capabilities. Colleagues, we must face the reality of our situation, she said finally. Humanity has proven that technological superiority is no longer a guarantee of military dominance. They possess weapons that can neutralize our most advanced defenses, and their terms for peace are surprisingly moderate, given their obvious advantages. Moderate? Admiral Quarren protested. They're demanding complete equality with civilizations that have existed for millions of years. They want to be treated as peers by species whose technology they can't even understand. Let alone duplicate, Admiral, Naraxis replied quietly. They've just demonstrated that they don't need to understand our technology to defeat it. Perhaps it's time we considered the possibility that our assumptions about the relationship between technological advancement and political authority have been proven incorrect. The debate continued for hours, but the outcome was never really in doubt. Faced with the choice between accepting humanity's reasonable demands or risking the destruction of galactic civilization itself, the Council voted to enter negotiations for a new galactic compact. The age of technological supremacy had ended in the span of a few minutes, replaced by something unprecedented in galactic history: a political order based on mutual respect rather than superior firepower. 6 months after the engagement that galactic historians would later call the Quantum War, Admiral Sarah Chen stood in the newly constructed diplomatic facility orbiting Earth. Through the transparent aluminum windows, she could see vessels from dozens of alien civilizations docked at the station's various ports, their crews engaged in the complex business of negotiating humanity's entry into galactic civilization as an equal partner. The transformation had been remarkable in its speed and scope. What had begun as humanity's desperate gambit for survival had evolved into a fundamental reshaping of galactic political order. The Treaty of Galactic Order, which had governed interstellar relations for over 2 million years, had been replaced by the Compact of Sovereign Species, a document that recognized the inherent equality of all spacefaring civilizations regardless of their technological development. Dr. Marcus Webb approached the observation deck carrying a data tablet filled with the latest reports from the ongoing technological exchange programs. The quantum resonance technology that had saved humanity was now being studied by the galaxy's greatest scientific minds not as a weapon to be feared, but as a revolutionary approach to physics that challenged fundamental assumptions about the nature of reality. Admiral, the latest reports from the joint research stations are fascinating, Webb said, his excitement barely contained. The Crystalline Confederacy's theoretical physicists have made remarkable progress in understanding our quantum disruption principles. They're calling it chaos dynamics, and suggesting it represents an entirely new branch of physics. Chen smiled as she reviewed the data. Humanity's desperate innovation had not only saved their species, but had also opened new avenues of scientific discovery that benefited the entire galaxy. The aliens' rigid, methodical approach to research was being revitalized by contact with humanity's chaotic creativity, leading to breakthroughs that neither side could have achieved alone. Any progress on the cultural exchange initiatives? Chen asked. Beyond our wildest expectations, Webb replied. The Helix Federation has established 12 research colonies using human agricultural techniques that they previously dismissed as primitive. Apparently, our inefficient farming methods produce crops with nutritional profiles that their hydroponic systems can't match. The irony was not lost on Chen. Technologies that advanced civilizations had rejected as backward were proving invaluable when applied with proper understanding. Humanity's tendency to embrace solutions that seemed crude or inelegant was being recognized as a form of adaptive thinking that had significant advantages in certain situations. Ambassador Zethkar materialized on the observation deck, his holographic form transmitted from the Vorthon diplomatic vessel. Over the months since the battle, he had become one of humanity's strongest advocates within the galactic community, recognizing that their unconventional approach to problems offered benefits that traditional methods could not provide. Admiral Chen, I bring greetings from the expanded Galactic Council, he said, his bioluminescent robes displaying patterns that conveyed satisfaction and respect. The vote has been finalized. Humanity has been granted full membership with all attendant rights and responsibilities. The moment represented the culmination of humanity's remarkable journey from galactic outcasts to respected partners in interstellar civilization. The species that had been dismissed as primitive and aggressive was now seen as valuable contributors to the galaxy's continued development and prosperity. What was the final vote count? Chen asked, curious about the level of support for humanity's membership. 45 in favor, 2 abstentions, and 0 opposition, Zethkar replied with obvious satisfaction. Even the most conservative council, members have come to appreciate the benefits of your species' unique perspective on scientific and social challenges. The transformation in galactic attitudes toward humanity had been swift but not entirely surprising. The quantum disruption technology had initially been seen as a terrifying threat, but humanity's restraint in its use and willingness to share the underlying scientific principles had gradually shifted perceptions. What had once appeared to be dangerous unpredictability was now recognized as valuable innovation. Admiral, we're receiving a priority transmission from the research facility at Proxima Centauri, announced Communications Officer Martinez from the station's command center. Dr. Valdez says they've achieved a breakthrough in applying quantum resonance principles to faster-than-light communication. Chen and Webb exchanged glances. Instantaneous communication across galactic distances had been considered impossible by every civilization that had ever attempted it. If humanity's quantum theories could solve this problem, it would represent an advance as significant as the original development of faster-than-light travel. The joint research project with the Creton Star Navy has also reported success, Webb added, checking his tablet for the latest updates. They've adapted our temporal displacement technology to create defense systems that are completely immune to energy weapons. Ships protected by these fields can survive direct hits from antimatter warheads. The military applications of humanity's innovations were being carefully managed through joint development programs that ensured no single species could dominate galactic affairs through technological superiority. The lesson of the quantum war had been learned. Advanced technology meant nothing if it could be neutralized by innovative thinking. Ambassador Zethkar, what's the Council's position on the expansion protocols we proposed? Chen asked, referring to humanity's suggestion that newly spacefaring species should be welcomed as equal partners, rather than managed as primitives requiring guidance. Approved unanimously, the ambassador replied. The Council recognizes that technological development does not necessarily correlate with wisdom or beneficial perspectives. Your species has demonstrated that innovative thinking often emerges from unexpected sources. Through the observation deck's windows, Chen could see a human exploration vessel departing for the Andromeda Galaxy, carrying the first joint human-alien crew to venture beyond the galactic rim. The mission represented more than scientific exploration. It symbolized the new era of cooperation and shared discovery that had emerged from humanity's refusal to accept defeat. Admiral, incoming message from Fleet Command, Martinez announced. They're requesting your approval for the deployment of the new Joint Defense Fleet. Representatives from 37 species have volunteered vessels for the unified command structure. Chen nodded approvingly. The Galactic Defense Force being assembled under human leadership was unlike anything in recorded history. Instead of relying on technological superiority, it emphasized adaptability, innovation, and the kind of creative problem-solving that had won humanity its place among the stars. As she watched alien vessels preparing for departure from the diplomatic station, Chen reflected on the remarkable journey that had brought humanity from the brink of destruction to the forefront of galactic civilization. The war that the Galactic Council had expected to end in humanity's swift defeat had instead lasted only minutes, but its consequences would reshape the galaxy for millennia to come. The aliens had predicted correctly that the war would end quickly. They had simply been wrong about who would be surrendering when it was over. Humanity's victory had proven that in a universe full of advanced technology and ancient wisdom, sometimes the most powerful weapon was simply the willingness to try the impossible and make it work. The galaxy would never be the same, and everyone in it was better for the change.